Hi class. In this video, I'm going to go over the topic 2 assignment, applying constructive strategies for teaching mathematics. This week's topic was very important to teaching mathematics, and that's using the constructivist theory for instruction. In this theory, we understand that if we have students experience and work out mathematics in hands-on ways, they'll be able to better learn it and apply it using critical thinking and problem solving skills, rather than the traditional teaching method where the teacher models and the students copy their thinking. We want to move away from that traditional teaching model to more of a constructivist approach where students construct knowledge through experiences. So, in this assignment, you're going to be looking for lesson plans and you're going to find any math lesson plan in any math content standards in grade levels K through 8. You're going to select plans that do not already use constructivist strategies for teaching math skills. Now, there are a lot of lesson plans posted on the internet. You could use anything from a YouTube video to different websites. Engage New York has free lessons on their website. Better Lesson. I think it's com or org typically has good lessons on their website, so they might already have constructivist strategies embedded into their plans. If you use a website where you have to sign up to download the lesson plan, you must download that lesson plan and include it with your assignment, or I will not be able to look at it. I have already utilized my free downloads from education.com. So when you link that lesson plan to education.com, I can't view it at all, and it makes it very hard for me to grade your work. So please, if you had to sign up to get the lesson plan, please download that lesson plan and attach it with your assignment. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what you're going to do with these lesson plans after you find 2. So you're going to use the mathematical lesson analysis template. So this template is found over here in our study materials for this week. It's not attached with the assignment, and unfortunately, I'm not able to edit the assignment and attach it for you. So you'll find it right over here in your study materials for the week. Now, when I look at this template, you'll see that they ask you to include a link to the lesson. One more time, I'm going to remind you to download the lesson if it's the link requires for you to create a sign-on. You're going to identify the grade level or state content standards that the lesson plan is addressing. For the next section, you want to look at the components within the lesson plan that align to the standards. This part, sometimes students have a hard time understanding exactly what they're supposed to do. So let me explain that a little bit better. So if my lesson included a standard about 3rd grade and learning area and how we can use tiling to determine the area of a square or rectangle, I'm going to look at all of those parts of the lesson plan. And I might see at the beginning, the teacher is introducing this idea of what is tiling, putting down squares over the rectangle to determine how much of the area is covered by the squares. That connects directly to this idea of tiling. So I'm going to pull out that part from the standard and then connect that to the part of the lesson and say, okay, where the teacher is using this idea of tiling, this connects to this part of the standard, and state exactly what part of the standard. Then you might say, okay, now students have to determine what is the full area of the rectangle in the standard. And so when the teacher has students count all the tiles or squares on the rectangle, that relates to this part of the standard. So you are connecting both the standard to components in the lesson plan. And so I should see evidence from the standard included in this section, as well as evidence from the lesson plan to show that alignment. Next, you're going to move into your constructivist strategy that involves critical thinking and problem solving. So the assignment states that you should be describing one constructivist strategy that could be used within the lesson that involves critical thinking and problem solving. You have to support this constructivist strategy with 1 to 2 scholarly sources. So, why did you choose this strategy? You need to be using those scholarly sources. Our readings this week will definitely help with that. So, we have our reading from Van de Waal and then some other idea readings in that support like this constructivist in constructivism in the classroom article and some other of our readings, constructivist approaches. All of these will support with that part of the assignment. So don't just say students are going to use manipulatives, but explain why manipulatives might be a constructivist strategy for students and support that with detail. When you describe this constructivist strategy, be very detailed. Paint a picture in my head of what that teaching would look like in the classroom. Okay, as I was saying, you want to create a detailed picture for me to understand exactly what it would look like in the classroom, that I could even pick it up and do the activity myself, and then support those ideas with your scholarly sources. For the last part of the assignment, you are going to, below the lesson plan analyses of those 2 lessons, you're going to write a 250 to 500 word reflection, and it has several parts to the reflection. And the first part is how you're going to incorporate the mathematical practice standards. This week, you had one reading around those practice standards, breaking down the Common Core 8 mathematical practice standards. The practice standards are standards that you teach with content. So, in my example about area, I would be using some of these practice standards to be able to support students learning this idea of area. For example, students might be modeling with mathematics using the manipulatives to show the area of their rectangles, or they're using those appropriate tools strategically. So when they're using those centimeter squares or inch squares to tile over a rectangle, they are knowing how to use it strategically, meaning we're not going to have gaps or overlaps, that those squares need to be fully covering the rectangle, and you can't have any half parts or gaps between the parts. Or students would be attending to precision, making sure that everything in their mathematics model or their math, working out their math is precise. So these, make sure you read about the mathematical practices and how we teach them incorporation of the content standards. And so in this reflection, you're going to talk about how you want to incorporate those mathematical practice standards and constructivism into your future classroom. You'll end that reflection with how you plan to provide a rigorous experience for students and prepare them for college and careers in the 21st century. So make sure you include all 3 parts to the reflection in your reflection. So let's take a look at the rubric and see how you'll be graded. So the first one is about the lesson plan links, your grade level, and your content standard. So you want to make sure those links are functional. In addition, if I have to log in, you need to include it because that means it will not function for me. Grade level state standards are accurately described, so you just need to choose the correct standards and identify the correct grade level for those lesson plans, each of those lesson plans. The next part is the components aligned to the standard, and that's the on your template. Are you identifying those components, and are you thorough with identifying each part of the lesson to each part of the standard? The next graded area is your constructivist strategies. For your constructivist strategies, I want to see that you're talking about how they support critical thinking and problem solving, and make sure this is appropriate for the grade level of math being taught. For example, in kindergarten, critical thinking might look different than it does in 6th grade. And then we have our reflection. So in the reflection, you want to incorporate those mathematical practice standards, constructivism, and preparing students for the 21st century. And you want to describe that detailed, thoroughly, proficiently. Next is using template. So just making sure you utilize all parts of the template correctly, and it's well presented and easier to read. Last is your documentation of the sources. You want to make sure that you use APA correctly, that you embed in-text citations, and you have a reference page at the end of the work. There is on the template a space for your sources. So if you include your APA style here, that is okay. But if you use any in-text citations in your reflection, you're going to want to have a reference page at the end. Last is mechanics, and as always, make sure you run through spell check and grammar check and submit it through LooksRight. If you have any questions as you're completing the assignment, please don't hesitate to reach out.